All right, hey everybody, it's Jim here. Welcome back to the second Audiomo podcast featuring my co-host Dave Nelson. Say hello to everybody, David.
Hey, what's going on?
Not much, not much. We got a lot to get into, but since we're going to be making this a weekly thing, I think we're going to have some sort of beginning in every time that we talk. And what I want to start with is the mix that we did and the Zelzah pedal also, just a little bit of details and kind of your perspective on when you're mixing in strange kind of effects like that, what your thought process is. So I'll leave it up to you. Just what were your initial thoughts kind of working with the sounds from the Zelzah?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I feel like, as a guitar player, right, I tend to stay away from phasers and flangers and those kinds of sounds, right? They sort of evoke that, like, kind of classic 80s or, like, even if you're doing the heavy stuff, right? Like maybe the Van Halen kind of vibe. So it's not usually a tone I'm like looking for or trying to go for. But it was cool. I think that this totally hit a different space. It's something. I think you were using it in an interesting way that kind of called for that sort of tone a little bit more. So, when mixing, it's more about like, all right, how do we play with the soundscape of it? Right, I tried some stuff with some panning, and then it's really about making each of those tones feel like they're in a room with each other and they make sense in the context of each other. So for me, that's like pulling in a really nice reverb that kind of sets a stage, and then making sure they all sort of sit in the same place and they all kind of feel like they're living in the same vibe. So I think that's kind of where came at it from, a guitar standpoint. But definitely impressed with, the tones that you were getting out of that weren't, don't immediately just go into like wonky phaser mode, which I think is so easy to overuse and kill.
Yeah, that's why I never really liked phasers. And I feel like because I used to have one of those bright green Boss phasers. I had it for like I don't know, like 4 years, and it was one of those things where I thought one day I would find a place for it, but when you were using the depth knob on that, it felt like it was either no phase whatsoever or it was like so over the top that I was like, I can't use this. And that's the one thing I really like about the Strymon stuff. Like it is subtle enough, whereas it can still work with kind of traditional sounds. And I don't know, I think that's kind of worth it. But branching off that, I did have a specific mixing question for you. When it comes to, because I don't use a wah wah pedal. I don't think I've ever recorded in any scenario a wah tone for any of the stuff I've ever worked on. When you're mixing something like that, because that little envelope filter thing, the Stratocaster line that came in second, that was a little bit of a wah sound. When you're talking about like frequencies, because that's all mixing is, it's just making sure things don't overlap with each other. How do you approach working with something where it varies so much?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's about, for me, always just trying to find the spot where it's supposed to sit. Luckily, with a mix like this, where it's pretty limited, right? You're just talking drums, you're talking bass and guitar, right? You're not making space for vocals. You're not making space for keys or anything like that. It's not too hard. I think my worry with like the wah phaser envelope filter kind of thing is just like it just crushes mids, right? And you end up kind of getting that like honky thing. So usually I end up kind of dialing some stuff out. And to be honest with you, I don't think I've really used a wah on a track in I don't know, probably 5, 6 years at this point either, for that reason, right? It just takes over stuff and it's like, also, I feel like it's impossible to find a wah that isn't like horrible in some spot or another. Uh, but yeah, it's usually about mids. It's covering your mids, right? And making sure you have the space for it to live and that it's not just crushing everything else in the mids. Luckily, because you really only had the bass underneath it, we had a lot of room to play. But yeah, it's usually just carving out a nice, getting rid of any of that honky stuff.
Okay, that's cool. Now we were talking about. I'm gonna move to drums real quick, and then we'll try to get into something else. I had already known this going in, and we talked about this before, but for the drum setup this time, it was three mics. It was a 57 on the kick drum because that's which is what I have at the moment. The i5 on the snare, and then the 2020 as the mono overhead. And I believe you can kind of get away with the three mic setup if the three mics are the right mics. So I know that I'm not putting out something incredible with that 2020. And if there was a way that you could kind of explain to people that might be interested in doing a little bit of home drum recording and stuff like that at home, why it might be worth it to spend a little bit more money on either one really solid mono overhead, or like you did the SM81s or something like that, like decent quality stereo set, or just a pair. Sorry.
Yeah, yeah. No, no. I think you're right on. Right. So at that point, when you're using the set the way you're using it, where you're talking about like either three mics, maybe four tops. If you're talking about like a stereo and a kick and a snare, like your entire drum image is coming from the overheads, right? So at that point, it's sort of like you have to cover as much ground with that as you possibly can, right? Because you're sort of relying on that for all of the tone at that point, right? So you're using the snare and the kick more for reinforcement and for clarity at that point. And I mean, honestly, like what I did with yours was the kick and the snare are going to get triggered, right? Because there just isn't a ton of content there to really pull stuff from. And I know it's like if the snare's missing some crack, I can pull that in from a sample, where it's harder to pull it in from, a single i5 track that you had. Plus, I think like the unsung hero of any good drum sound is obviously the room, right? And when you have a really large tonal kind of overhead to pull from, creating a fake room, which is I think primarily what the driver of the drum tone for that particular mix I did for your track there is this fake room that's being made from the overhead. So I'll take the overhead, I'll throw a reverb on it, find something that feels really realistic and that pulls out kind of what I want that's not coming out of the kit already. Like in that case, it's some nice low ends, some decent toms, and some sparkle from, the high end, and then just crush the crap out of it with a really nice compressor and dial it in to kind of build a space. If you're starting off with a really bad overhead space, it's just going to get infinitely harder to work with, right? So while I don't think you need to go out and go spend like $1,000 on an overhead mic, having something that kind of covers a pretty clear and flat response for the whole kit saves you a whole lot of time later.
So, what would you recommend then? Say somebody had, anywhere between 300 to $600.
If you really want to stick mono, I like these 81s. I think they sound really good, and I think you pick up a used one for like $300. I think that, we kind of talked about this on the phone before, but I really think that the stereo pair thing is pretty overrated.
Yes.
I think a little bit of differences between your two mics is fine, right? It's just going to build more stereo image. Unless it's drastically off, nobody's going to notice. And, I'm not spending an extra couple $100 just because the model numbers are one away from each other, right? So I bought two 81s. They're both used. They're not a stereo pair. I picked them both up for under $300 a piece, and now I have stereo 81s for way less than you'd pay for a match pair of them. The other thing I think, and I'll recommend this mic forever, is the Rode, the NT2As or the NT1A, right? I think the nice thing about doing a large diaphragm as a mono overhead too is you're going to get even more low end. And if you don't need it, you roll it off. If you do need it, it's there, right? So I think there's something to be said about like one of those, a nice mid-range large diaphragm as drum overheads for sure.
And the other reason I think it's a good thing to maybe suggest somebody, well, not suggest, but if somebody does want to go the mono overhead route, you can get more mileage out of that microphone as a guitar player, because if you have a 57,
Sure.
which everybody has a 57, you
Yep.
can throw that condenser a little bit, back it off of the cab as well. As long as it's not
Yep.
in phase, you're going to have a really, really cool differentiating tone that you can blend in with your guitar track and really beef it up.
Yeah, for sure. Or even if you want to do some more spacey stuff or some ambient stuff, throwing it in as a room mic behind a cab, or out in we've done stuff where we've used it in an adjacent room where you get like really weird sounds for stuff, and there's lots of things you can do with mics that cover a large gambit, and that's why I think the Rhodes are always a great buy.
Yeah, that one, and the other mic I think is really, really halfway decent in that kind of price range. It's a little bit more expensive than the NT2A, but the Warm Audio, the U87 clone,
Yep.
you can get those used for like $550, and they're really, really, really good mics.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and something like that's really going to sing on vocals in a way. While I do like the Rode on vocals quite a bit, it's really
It's a little
it's just
harsh
very
sounding.
clear. It's a little harsh, yeah, and you
Yeah,
do
it's
have
a
to
little
dial
harsh.
back, and you're not going to get any like that low end magic that something like the Warm would give you. Yeah.
Yeah, and it sucks too, because one mic I tell people that you really, really gets underrated by many engineers that aren't pros, is the SM7B. But the SM7B, works really good on a kick drum. It works really good even on a cabinet if you do it right. And obviously, if you're doing vocals on it, you're doing anything more aggressive. But when we're talking about budgets and using something for an overhead, that immediately gets taken out of the equation. There's no chance in hell that you will ever see anybody using an SM7B as a mono drum overhead.
Yeah. It's funny. That's what I'm using right now for
Yeah,
for
of
this.
course you are. Yeah, it's a great mic. It's a great mic.
It is a great mic. I do think it. I'm gonna say something weird here. Is it possible for it to be underrated and overrated at the same time? I feel
Yes.
like everybody wants it, and they're always like, "Oh, it's the Thriller mic." And to be honest with you, I'm usually pretty unimpressed with it on vocals. Like, it's good for demos because it sounds exactly like you think it's going to sound. Where I'm more impressed about it with it, and where I think it is underrated, is in the unusual kind of applications like you're talking about. Like, it's great on
kick drum.
drums,
Yeah, it's
but
really
it doesn't get
good.
used on drums all that often. Even though it really is just a glorified 57 with a better mount. But it's like I'm tired of people being like, I gotta have that on my vocals, and then just being like, yeah, it just sounds like you're singing into a 57.
Yeah. I totally agree with you. And
Yeah.
it's funny because another thing on the drums it sounds really good on is the floor tom, because it is just a gigantic 57 and it just kind of adds a little bit of depth and body to it. It's really cool. But I actually agree with you. On the majority of vocals, I find I don't really love it. I like how tolerant it is. Like, you don't have to worry about that aspect of it compared to a traditional or a normal condenser microphone. But overall, I don't really love it. You would really need to match it with the right preamp for it to
absolutely.
be worth it. But
Well,
at that point, you're putting a $350 microphone into like a $2,000 preamp. So
yeah, and I mean, let's be real. A mic that I have to have a preamp for is not a great buy either.
No, it's not.
I've got this one running through the Dynamite. I think it's an SE. It's like it's basically a little cloud lifter, but it's cool because it's like in line with the XLR cable. But I spent $400, I think, on this used maybe, and then I got to spend an extra $100 on either a cloud lifter or a preamp of some kind to like get it up to usable levels. I don't know. It's just sort of a it's a lot for basically what is a 57, and I have 5 of those in a crate back there. So yeah.
Yeah, and I think if people just want to talk about guitars and guitar micings, while we're on this, because we're gonna get off this right off that. Obviously, everybody should have a 57, but I think the i5, it looks the same as a 57, and on paper, a lot of people think it's really similar.
Yeah.
Oh, it's not. I think
definitely not.
People use that little Sennheiser, the E609, with the 57 a lot of the time, and I think that works really well. I used that on a few tracks on the last record, but I think the i5 is different enough from the 57, where if you use those two together, you can get a really, really cool sound for not a lot of money.
Yeah, agreed. And honestly, my i5's like my go-to for for toms, in lieu of a 57. I think it does everything a 57 does, but I get more low-end content. And again, if I don't need it, I roll it off. If I need it, it's there. Whereas with a 57, it's like you're getting a lot of click and a lot of stuff in the beginning, and then not a lot at the end. And most of the time, that's fine. And for guitar, obviously, especially with a lot of the stuff that I do, which is heavier, it's great. And but as soon as you need a little bit more beef, something like an i5 is like really nice, where you're not getting like that super far character from a 57 like sometimes you get when you pair a 57 with like a condenser, and then suddenly you've got this super metallic weird sound because they just don't work together at all. And I feel like an i5 and a 57 never give you that combo. It's just like, I want more of that clarity, but I also want some low end that the 57 isn't bringing. It's the perfect mic for that.
Yeah, well said. I could not agree with you enough. And we're not going to bore anybody with anything else about this, but because we obviously we went to school for this, and this is kind of how we just started, talking to begin with, was about the gear and about the miking techniques and stuff like this. And I could talk about it all day, but there are other things. And one thing that's a little funny that you didn't know about, and I mentioned it to you when you asked if there was anything you had ready for this show in particular that you needed to do homework on. What do you think? Now, I'll explain it in a little bit of detail for the people that might not know. Gibson is now offering you to put stock in their guitars, or hold stock in their guitars. And what that means is, for $5 or $10, you can own a part of a $65,000 or a $95,000 guitar. And just what?
Yeah. Yeah.
What are your thoughts on this?
I mean, I don't get what they're doing over. I just can't. It just doesn't make any sense to me. Like, like if you owned $5 in a $65,000 guitar, even if it went up by 10%, what do you have? You know what, like $550 now? I don't know. It doesn't make any sense to me. You know, I'm curious. Maybe if you know more about this than I do, but like,
Sure.
I would be really curious to know when Gibson sells a. I don't even think they sell any $900 guitars, but when they sell a $900 guitar, what is the profit margin comparison on that versus a $10,000 guitar? Right? Like, obviously, the profit margin on the $10,000 guitar would probably be more, right?
It's substantially more. It's
Yeah,
substantially.
you know,
No.
But
I
it
actually,
requires a huge amount of leadway time, right? Like, they've got guys working on them all the time. Like, it also costs them more, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So if they sell a few thousand of those a year, how is that like the smarter route than them just building good guitars at a reasonable price point? Like, you would think that the $1,200, the $1,300 guitar is the one where they make the most money, right? Because like half of it's CNC'd, the quality control is reasonable, right? And they can pump them out. So like, why do all this extra shit and then focus only on these like super high-end guitars and focus on this narrow market of like boomers who are independently wealthy and also love Slash? Like, what's that, like, you know, maybe 50 people?
Yeah, and it goes back to the really modern thing even before this. The Jerry Cantrell, the Wino Red Les Paul Custom. They made
Yeah.
100 of them. Only 20 of them were available in America, and I think they were $8,000, and they were all sold immediately. And if you go on the Reverb now, they're worth infinitely more than that. It's
Right.
just I don't know. And when you consider the climate that we're in, like with just like the world, forget like specifics of like what's happening, but like how finances are like on the tip of just like you don't know what's gonna happen tomorrow or something. Like
No,
the whole
yeah.
market could crash, like, or the music market could crash as a result of anything. And but the fact that this is where they're putting their attention,
Yeah.
it's just
Like
they're so out of touch.
right, exactly what you said though, right? Like the market could crash tomorrow, and are you going to be like, yeah, but I got like $20 on an Adam Jones Les Paul Custom. I think I'm financially secure for the future. Like,
It's just okay. So here's what we're gonna do here. To anybody who follows this channel, I'm gonna offer you a better deal than Gibson is, and here's why. I have that ES Les Paul. You give me $5, a $5 stake in that. I will play a song on it. So at least you're getting something back for your
Yeah,
$5 because you're never gonna make money either way. At least here you'll be able to see it on a daily basis. And, you know, you're just supporting me a little bit. I mean, I'm kidding around here, but it would take something that little
Yeah.
to be like, okay, this is obviously so stupid that if I'm offering something as little as that, that's genuinely
Yeah,
a better deal. Like, it's just crazy.
the article that I read said you can put stake in a guitar that was previously unobtainable, which is hysterical. Like, it's not still unobtainable. You're not getting the guitar. You just put $5 on the worth of this stupid guitar.
Yeah, I own Microsoft because I have like I don't know $100 in the
Yeah.
Microsoft, right?
Yeah.
So now I have the unattainable. I am Bill Gates.
Yes, you
I
are
am
Bill Gates.
I am
Yes.
Bill Gates.
I just don't understand. I don't know. I don't understand. It's got to be that they're just like, you know what? Everyone's going to laugh about it and get more people talking about Gibson. It can't be that they think it's, you know, really means anything from a monetary standpoint. It's so stupid.
I think part of it's right, and I think that us even talking about this is doing them good. It is. It's doing them good at the end of the day because it's us talking about Gibson. But
Yeah.
I find it so ridiculous, and I didn't know what an NFT was until this was announced. Apparently, people put money into JPEGs
Yeah.
and
I'm not
into JPEGs.
Yeah. As a designer by trade, I don't condone the NFT thing. I think it's a little ridiculous. And you know, and then the immediate thing afterwards was like, how much energy is being used to create an NFT? Like, it's just like, I think we're really not, you know, like really taking this very seriously.
No,
Yeah.
not at all. That's pretty funny though. You got to admit.
Yeah. It's definitely funny.
I can't do it. But I mean, piggybacking off of your one point that you made, I think it's a really good point. You were talking about why don't they just put their resources into making a 12, or even even let's talk about the Les Paul Studio, right? That's
Yep.
14.99. If you're going to charge that, why not just go all the hell out on that guitar and make it as good as you're going to do? Because like you said, the majority of it's still going to be CNC'd.
Yeah.
Maybe you put a little bit more effort into those guitars and you
I
might move them. But I mean, who's
yeah.
buying that guitar? Who's buying that guitar? Because at that point, you're spending $1,500, right? For $500 more, you get something that looks like a traditional Les Paul. You get the classic. It has the binding on it. It has the
Yeah.
binding on the top of it. And that might not seem like a big deal to a lot of people, but when you're going and reselling these instruments, it really does make the biggest
Yeah.
difference
Yeah.
in the world.
Yeah.
And from an investment standpoint, I can't think of many Les Paul studios that are really worth anything what they were new. And the only ones I could think of the Les Paul lights from the
Yeah.
early 90s, because those
Yep.
were actually desirable. Those were the balsa wood bodies, and they were also had a real ebony fingerboard on it before they decided to go to rosewood. It's just really cool, and they don't make them anymore. So something like that I
Sure.
understand, but all these ones, they're dime a dozen. They all have the same generic kind of push pull, same pickup configuration,
Yeah.
same colors every year. There's nothing special about them.
Yeah, and I think to your question there, like I have the same one, and it makes me wonder sometimes. I think if like maybe I'm out of touch with whatever the current guitar buying market is, right? But to me, spending $1,300 on a Gibson that has like half of the modern amenities I really want just seems ridiculous, right? Like, and then I always think like, who when you look at the all of the brands across the board, like who is it that's making the most money at the end of the day off the guitars? Is it Harley Benton putting out $200 guitars that have that quality control that they're doing there with fairly affordable parts? Are they making the most money, or are they hoping that
I
you
don't
buy
think
a Harley
so.
Benton and then you go back and buy other stuff, right? It's a long game, right?
Yeah.
They're probably not, right? But maybe it's Charvel that like consistently hits the $1,000 mark, and they pump out great guitars all the time that everybody loves, and you go there and you know exactly what you're going to get, and it's modern amenities, or is it that Gibson crushes it and that's why they're doing this, right? That's why they're like, hey, we're just going to keep putting out half-ass products with half-ass things in them, and we'll charge $1,600 for a basic Les Paul, and people are some reason buying it. I don't know.
I think I have an answer for you, and it's not what you want to hear. I think it is Gibson, and I think it is Fender, and you just
Yeah.
explained why. So if you look at even, I just got that Edwards guitar in. So let's talk about what
Yeah.
we have in America that would be an equivalent to LTD, right? So
Yep.
for I think it's 10.99 or 11.99. It's one of those 2.
Mm-hmm.
You get their Les Paul, and it comes with a Fishman Fluence pickup system into
Yep.
it. It comes with a piezo or a piezo. I don't know the right way to say that. And it comes with an ebony board, Graphtec Tusk nut. The thing is just spec to all hell. Locking tuners, it
Yeah.
the studio.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things where it's so much substantially better than the Gibson that you would think to yourself, why doesn't everybody just say screw you to Gibson and buy one of these? Because in my opinion, you're getting way more for your money.
Yeah,
and,
absolutely.
and well, people will make the argument. They'll say, oh well, these guitars are made in Indonesia now, because they used to be made in Korea. Now they're made in Indonesia. And I mean, PRS SEs are some of the best guitars that I play. Like
Yep.
in that kind of price range, those are Indonesian.
Yep.
Like I would take those Indonesian models over Fender Mexico, especially when it comes to quality control.
Yeah, and maybe that argument was fine 10 years ago, right? But I
Yeah.
mean, they're all getting amazing, right? I mean, it's been a long time since I played a guitar that truly was awful. Like so I don't obviously like all the specs of the stuff that I play, right? But like they're never like, oh my god, how did this make it out of the factory? Like they're all doing and I mean even just the stuff that they're doing now, right? Like you have like some of these smaller brands that are doing like stainless steel frets, or like
Yeah.
just crazy things that those guys would have never done in those factories before. So like the whole like where it's made thing is kind of, I mean, obviously it holds some merit, but not the same way it did 10 years ago when it was like, yeah, I'm not getting anything that's coming out of, XYZ factory or whatever.
Yes, and I think the reason for that is you have to look at it the same way. In the 90s, people looked down on Korean guitars a lot.
Right.
Because there's not a history of that. And I mean, when you think about guitar makers the two countries that historically have stood the test of time, obviously America, and then the second one is Japan, because
Yeah.
Japan were the ones that came
Yeah.
in the 70s and were building American guitars better than the Americans were at that point, because
Sure.
Gibson and Fender were both in their lulls. So you have those two who had this reputation. In the 90s, the Koreans, the Korean models, a lot of those were kind of looked down upon, and they thought, oh, it's not made in Japan and it's not made in America. They're not very good. Nowadays, a lot of people look back on those and they say those are some of the best Epiphones and things of those
Sure.
ilk. But what I think happens is it doesn't matter what country it is. We could be talking about Czechoslovakia if they were to start building guitars this year, right?
Yeah. Yep.
The longer that a factory stays open and the people there stay working there,
Yeah.
so long
Yeah.
as there's actual standards and they don't just accept anything off the production line, then
Yeah.
it's always going to keep improving. And I think that's part of the reason, maybe, that they're moving the production from Korea in a lot of these factories, because PRS also was Korea, just like ESP, and into Indonesia. I think it has to do with the fact that they got so good that the prices were starting to get a little bit more expensive for the actual labor. So it makes sense to go
Yeah.
to a different place where the wages might be a little bit lower.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. You're probably right. And again, I think I would definitely echo that sentiment that it's like they've been doing it long enough at this point that
It
they're
doesn't
all
matter.
getting to a decent point. Yeah, it doesn't. But still, I would be curious if I, ever got to pick the brain of a decent sized CEO for a guitar company, like what profit margins look like at different price points, and like
Yeah.
how is it possible at some point that we can unseat Gibson and Fender as the king of what they do, and is it really ever possible? Because I would at least like to force them to start offering some modern stuff, and maybe they're only doing that through these sub brands like Charvel or through Epiphone or whatever, but it would be nice to get a Les Paul that felt like it was designed in 2021 as opposed to 1989.
Well, you're going to have to go to PRS or you're going to have to go to ESP for that.
Yeah. Yep.
And I don't think what you're saying is possible or what you want to happen. What I kind of want to happen too, because here's the thing: at the end of the day, I love Gibsons and I love Fenders. I have a bunch of both of them. I think they're great. When they're great, they're great. When they're not great, oh my God, they're literally firewood. But the problem is, we're not talking about cars. And with cars, there's always a way that technology takes things to the next level, so you can kind of phase out a company. But with guitars, the best ones are still revered as the old classic ones. And if you've played, I don't know how many actual good vintage guitars you've played, there really is something to it. I always thought it was bullshit. Bullshit. But I don't think they're necessarily like infinitely better. Like a great guitar player is going to be a great guitar player regardless. However, because those two have those legacies and they're still making them in that way, I don't see a time that we're not going to have those two as the kings.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. And, I mean, I don't know. Yeah, I guess I want something impossible out of them, which is that I want them to realize you made a bunch of amazing guitars, and now you can continue to make new amazing guitars that are actually modern as well. But it just doesn't feel like that's what they're interested in doing, right? And it's fine, whatever. I'm just gonna go buy a Charvel, or I'm just gonna go buy, an LTD or an ESP instead.
Yeah.
And, whatever. They're not hurting, obviously. So.
No, they're fine. But you know what?
Yeah.
I'll give Fender a lot more credit here than I'll give Gibson.
Yeah,
because
I would agree with that. Yeah.
When you look at the Fender, for $2,000, if you want to buy like that kind of primo before you start into getting into custom shop territory, because $2,000 is, that's almost like the standard for a decent American guitar at this point. It's crazy. But you have your choice at that point. You can go with the American Original, which is going to give you all that vintage stuff, or the Ultra. The Ultra has the compound radius fretboard. It has the actual nice neck on it that's really new, and the electronics are a little fancier on it. It doesn't look as new. They offer it in kind of unique, up-to-date colors that kind of are taking chances. Now, I'm not a big fan of those guitars, but I appreciate that they're doing it. Like, what's Gibson doing? They have they have the Les Paul Modern, but I think that's like, I don't know.
It's not
the same kind of vibe, though.
No, and it's a joke of them. Like the Modern is like that's what they should be offering just as a regular guitar.
That should be the Studio.
Right. Yeah, and then the Modern should be something that has modern specs. Like put a Fishman in it, right? Everybody else seems to be doing it. I don't understand. Like even an EMG, it's or something different, would be
Yeah.
nice. Yeah. Some locking tuners for once would be cool. I don't, but yeah, I will say at least Fender's taking some cool risks. Like
A little
I
bit,
do
yeah.
really like those, what are the alternate universe lines and stuff
Parallel
like
universe, yeah, I
parallel
love
universe.
those.
Yeah, like they're getting some cool stuff. They're doing some neat things, and I will say that I have played a few of the newer player series that have been pretty decent, and they definitely feel like they give a shit as opposed to some of the newer Gibsons that I played that just I don't know. Maybe I got a couple of bad ones, but they've all been kind of meh,
I know. I've been very lucky the last three Gibsons I've had because each one has been that good. And
Yeah,
but before that, I think I went through a phase of six in a row buying and reselling all of them, man. There was always at least one glaring thing where I was just like, dude, how did you get this wrong? Like, how did this make it out of the factory? Like, I didn't understand it. But they don't care. Did you know?
no,
One of my people that watches my channel, I was making a complaint about Gibson and how basically how they don't care and their customer service really just brushes people off, and their answer to every problem if you've already purchased a product is sorry, your product doesn't work, but you should purchase a new one. He needed pickup screws for a brand new standard that he bought. He went to the shop that he bought it from, and they messaged Gibson, and they just completely blew them off, even for
yeah,
pickup screws, dude.
yeah,
Are
right.
you
Which
kidding me?
is gotta like it's gonna cost them more in the shipping than it would in the parts, and
Yeah, but
maybe
you gotta do that, man. Like what
of
kind?
course, yeah,
It's just
right.
garbage.
What
It's
somebody's
garbage.
it's 5 minutes of time for a tech, to keep a customer happy. That'll probably come back and buy more Gibsons if he thinks that you give a shit about him. Yeah, it seems like a no brainer. You know?
That seems like it, but
Yeah,
man, oof, oof.
yeah, yeah. I know. I've heard plenty of the same stories, right? Like, and I will say that I think Gibson single handedly has made me wary of buying guitars online, new guitars online. I've heard a bunch of stories about people buying Gibsons, and I knew a guy who bought a Gibson online, and it showed up with frets that were off the fretboard.
Yes.
And
I
it's like,
actually I mentioned that in my Edwards video. I said it's the only company that I don't feel confident buying new
yeah,
sight
yeah,
unseen online. I won't do it.
yeah, yeah. You just can't. It's just not worth the risk,
No,
and
it's
which is
sad.
sad. Like they're one of the big two, right? It just feels like it shouldn't be that hard to figure it out.
So who makes the best American guitars?
You know what? I don't think I know what the whole list is. Um, give me the tops.
Okay. Well, obviously we got the big two. We got
Yep.
PRS. We got Built. We got Sir. We got Tom Anderson.
I think I'm gonna have to say it's Sir. Honestly, I think they build. I think they make the best guitars. They're not a guitar I would ever buy, but I have never played a guitar that's played as nice as a Sir.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, it's not a guitar for me. I would never purchase a Sir.
What didn't you like
But
about it?
no, I love them. It's just not my style of guitar that I would spend that kind of money on. Like
But why then? No, because that doesn't make sense. Because if it's that good, what does it matter?
because if I was gonna spend $6,000 on a guitar, it probably wouldn't be a Telly clone, even if it played as good as that Telly clone did. You know what I mean? Like, if I'm spending $6,000, I need more stuff out of it. I need some really great pickups, and I need like, I don't know, just there's something in principle about it that it's just like
It's
if I'm
because
gonna
it's a
spend,
bolt-on. Yeah.
yeah, and just like I could buy 3 Tellys for that, like that are almost as good.
I'll tell
But
you what I think the answer to that is. Collings.
yeah,
I think,
I don't think I've ever played one.
dude, I played a 59 reissue ES335, and in the same store they had a Collings I-35, and I played the Gibson first because obviously, I went for, I think it was Pelham Blue. Yeah, it was Pelham Blue, and I was like, oh man, that looks so good, and I thought it was good. I thought it was a good guitar. I think they wanted like $6,500 for it, and the guy said, have you ever played one of these? And it was a Sherwood Green Collings I-35. And I
Yeah,
said, no, I've never heard of that brand. And stupid me, right? But I sat and I played with it. The difference between that and the Gibson, it was one of those scenarios where you giggle to yourself. It feels
Yeah,
like you
yeah,
just
yeah,
it felt
yeah.
like I just learned a secret that nobody knew.
Right,
And
right.
but my problem is I could justify a 6 grand on a 335 like that because the amount of craftsmanship that goes into that is a lot more
Yeah,
than
yeah, yeah.
a Tele or a Strat for me. I mean, I don't know, and I'm not a builder. I assemble guitars, but I'm not a builder. But from my perspective of just looking at guitars and appreciating just like the little nuances, I think that I could justify it more on a semi-hollow or a full hollow guitar a lot more. Is it like you,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
you when
yeah.
it comes to the Syrah? I don't think I could do it.
Yeah, and I'm sure if I played a Collins, he'd probably change my mind. And I think that it's even just that type of guitar, though. I'm trying to think of what the other ones are. There's a couple of guys who do, or a couple of brands that do that, like out of the box, incredible, like vintage aged Gibson style guitar, where it's like, they start at like $3,500, and you're just kind of like, yeah, I get it. They're like, they got like the nitro varnish finishes and stuff, and they just feel like somebody's pulling out some old, violin that has history that you like can't
Yeah.
understand, and it feels like, yeah, okay, I get why you're spending that kind of money on it. And I think Soar has a little bit of that vibe going on too. I think it's for me, it's a question of like, if I'm spending that kind of money, it's got to be a workhorse. And I just don't, I feel like the Sur would be amazing at that thing that Surs do, but it wouldn't be a workhorse in the way that I would want it to be.
Yeah.
You
At
know,
that
I,
at
I
that
don't
point,
know.
I take the PRS over the Sir.
Yeah, I think I would too. Although aside from the PRS that, I bought from you, I still feel like every time I pick up a PRS, I'm like, I would buy this, but I'd have to rip the pickups out, which at, the cost of a USA PRS, I don't like doing.
No, no, but when I say a PRS, I'm talking about ones that are not really attainable, and for
Yeah,
most
yeah.
people, they're really not. Because if you've played, I don't think you have played one of the pickups, the LT sets.
Yeah, I don't think so either. Yeah.
Those pickups, oh my God, it's night and day, man.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
like you take a blanket off the guitar,
Sure.
and it's
Yeah.
like it's how it's supposed to sound. And it sucks
Yeah.
that you got to spend a minimum, I think, $3,800 to
Yeah.
get those
Yeah.
pickups now. But
So
my
I had
God, they're good.
yeah, I'm sure they are. I had a McCarty for a while, and it had dragons in it, and they were awful. And
Yeah,
that's
those
honestly,
suck.
I
Those suck.
really think it's colored my opinion of PRS pickups since. Like I just expect it to sound that way, and it's like, man, those pickups sucked. In such a nice guitar, they were terrible. And I think I ended up selling it at one point, and I hadn't even replaced the pickups on it. But if I had it now, I would have immediately ripped them out. They were just awful.
Yeah, I didn't. I had a set. Oh, I had a 10 top custom 24 that had a HFS and what was the other one? HFS and just a vintage bass, I think. And it was the same thing. I was like, the rest of this guitar is so good.
Yeah,
Why
yeah,
are these pickups so bad?
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I don't know, and I think that's where that's the stuff that makes me so mad about, like when Gibson's asking $1,600 for a Les Paul, and you're like, you can't even put decent pickups in the thing, like I don't want your stupid burst buckers or whatever. Like, it's not that hard to just go to Duncan and be like, give me a set and put them in here. Like every other company can do it. Why can't you do it?
What's the pride thing? And then that takes more money
Yeah,
out of their bottom line. It's just more things that they can make money on
you
instead of the
know.
pickups.
Then give me
That's
the option. Charge me an extra $100 and let me put Duncans in it on the way out
Wait,
or whatever. It's like.
doesn't the Slash one come with Duncans? Because
It
I know
might. I'm sure there's
I think
Slash's
Slash, yeah, because
Duncans though.
Slash has Duncans. Yeah, I was gonna
Yeah.
say, but still, I know
Yeah.
you love
Okay.
Slash.
I meant I want real Duncans. Yeah. Sorry.
You
I
know,
don't want Slash's Seymour Burstbucker Duncans.
well, a set of Seth Lovers, the
Yeah.
SH55, the actual non-ceramic dumped in or non enamel coated PAFs. Those are legitimate freaking pickups, and they're not a ton of money.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
actually, I think a set of those is less than a set of burst buckers if you were to buy them new and put them in a guitar.
I'm sure. I'm sure. I don't. Yeah. I don't know. I feel like the Burstbuckers are expensive. I've like seen
They
them
are.
outside of, and that they're just. Yeah, and I think it's a similar story with some of the PRS pickups, that it's just like they're
Oh
decent
man.
at a bunch of stuff and they suck at pretty much everything at the same time. Like they're not good at any one thing, so they end up kind of being bad at everything.
I agree with you. The only ones that I really like are the 5708s. As far
Yeah,
as ones that, because you can't buy the LT pickups. You can't buy them. You have to buy a guitar that has them in them. They don't sell them separately.
yeah,
But the ones that they do sell, the 5708s are fantastic. I have those in my
sure.
McCarty. I like those.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
every other pickup, I've not played a different one I liked from
yeah,
PRS that
yeah.
they independently sell.
I don't know. Maybe it's just some weird soft spot with Paul that he's got for these weird pickups that are just
He hears
meh,
something we
you
don't.
know. Yeah, maybe. Yeah,
I don't know. The guy's a genius, but we agree. I think
yeah, yeah,
but then it makes me question because yeah, like I said, I'm beating a dead horse here. But the LTs are done so well that he knows how to do it. It's
yeah,
just a
yeah.
matter of offering it in all the guitars. That's all.
Yeah, yeah, I guess so. I mean, they're a similar company with that same thing though, where I wish that they had more options for it, like that they were talking to other companies, right? Like whatever, if you want to, put yours in them and then give me the option to do some others, that would be better, And I don't know, maybe they're just one of those brands that's just always going to do all that stuff in house, and they're not going to do stuff like that. But I feel like so many other companies are doing great with it right now, especially with the Fishman stuff, right? Because Fishman's killing it. Their pickups sound incredible, and you can tell everybody's trying to hop on that, and they're stuffing them in everything. So
Yeah.
why not give me an option for a PRS with Affluence? You know?
Yeah, the Reverend Telecasters, the Greg Cox, they have two models
Yeah,
of them. The one that are the single coil tellies, they have the telly Fishmans, and then the other one, the newer one, it's double P90s with a big speed. And
yeah,
it is
yeah,
just a monster of a guitar, man. And it's
yep,
something that
yep,
like if Fender made that, if even if they didn't use the Fishmans, if Fender made a double P90 Telecaster like the Cabronita style with a Bigsby, holy
yep,
shit, I'd buy
yep,
two.
yep,
I'd buy two, but we
yeah,
have to make all the other typical ones, and then put all of our
yep.
focus into the Squires that are now $500. It's
Yeah,
crazy.
yeah.
It's
They have gotten
crazy.
better, but they are getting a little out of hand with the Squire stuff.
Yeah,
But
there's
real quick to
still.
catch you on that, what do you think of the Reverends? What's your thought on them?
I love them.
Yeah, yeah,
I
agreed.
love them.
Yeah,
I think they're
yeah,
so cool. And another thing I like about that, it goes back to the crux of our conversation before we went into like, who's our favorite band. We were talking about what we want out of Gibson. We want
yeah.
something different. We'll take a chance, and we were giving Fender credit for
Mm-hmm.
this because they're taking a
Yep.
lot more chances. But people bag on the Reverend guitars. They'll be like, "Oh, well, that's just a rip off of this," or they'll go to the other
No, no,
extreme,
no.
and
Yeah,
then they'll say, "Oh, this is too wild. This is just looks ridiculous, dude. What do you want them to do? Do you
yeah.
want them to just make
No,
Telecasters and stretches by a Fender at that point?"
right. You're absolutely right. Reverend is doing what I want Fender to do
Yes,
more of. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, for sure.
and they play great.
Every yeah, they do. Every one of their guitars has played awesome that I've played. I think while not all of the looks are for me, most of them are. I think they knock it out of the park on a couple of those guitars on the style points for sure. They got like a cool kind of Fender meets like D'Angelico kind of a vibe
Yeah,
a little bit,
yeah.
and that's pretty sweet. It's kind of almost retro, but like retro modern. But yeah, man, they're cool guitars, and they started kind of exploding a while back, and then they kind of dialed
Die
back a little bit.
down.
I haven't heard as much about them, and I wish that that was not the case because somebody not making Telly and Strat clones really coming up would be super cool.
Well, you have Ernie Ball, you have Sterling by Music
Yeah,
Man.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, well, you can refer back to the last
Yeah,
conversation on how we
I'm
feel
not
about
gonna
that
do
one.
it.
Yeah,
That
yeah,
it's an inside joke here. Well, not inside. You guys were inside on it too. But yeah, no, I think that's a guitar that I'm gonna be looking for. A Reverend to get onto this channel and
yeah,
review it and show
yeah,
people.
yeah.
The Greg Koch one, like I said, the one with the P90s and the Bixby, I think it's like $1,700, and you're not getting the deal. And I am not somebody who is gonna get a sponsor for a guitar like that, or even just like
No, no, yeah,
not even to keep. You know what I mean? Like even like a
yeah.
let me borrow it for a week and I'll send it back to you, and like that's the end of it. Like yeah, that's just not gonna happen. So just to dump that much money into a guitar where I don't know. I don't think it's the
Yeah,
brightest idea.
yeah,
And I really
or
want to. I
you'd have
want
to
to.
find a shop that's got a good relationship with them that maybe you could loan it out for a review and bring it back. We had a shop here actually in Connecticut, down in New London that had a really good relationship with them, and they had a ton of them. And I think they moved to a smaller shop, unfortunately, and now I don't think they hold as many of them. But
Yeah.
yeah, they are pricey, I think, and it. I don't know. It feels worth it, but they're like right at the tipping point of like if they were like 13 to
Yeah.
12, I would like not even think about it.
If
But
oh, you're so right because
yeah,
if that was priced less than the American Professional 2 Telecaster, I think I already would have done it. I think I
yeah,
would I think I
yeah,
would have gotten a little bit too tired because I don't drink anymore. But I might have puffed a joint. I might have
yep.
been a little too tired. Got on the Sweetwater and been on a 6 payment plan, and my wife would have been like, "What the hell is this?"
Dude, how did Sweetwater just like sneak that under there? They were just like, "Oh, hey, we're doing payment plans now," and it just they got everybody with that shit.
They did.
So many people who were just like, "Dude, I just bought a brand new guitar because I can do it in 20 payments and it's only like $18 a month." It's just like I'm stealing it from them basically.
It's like, are you now? Well,
Yeah,
here's where I'm going to
yeah.
give them credit. There is no interest.
Yeah,
So
no, it's a good
that's
deal. I
cool.
mean,
It
I
is
get
it
it,
is a
but
good deal.
it's funny that it just like popped up and then suddenly it was just like, well, now everything's affordable, you know?
Yeah. Well, before that, you had American Musical and Z Sounds. Zounds.
Yeah, sounds.
How the hell do you even like that? Whoever came up with that, you're a damn idiot. Sorry,
Yeah.
but yeah, you could do up to a year on those. But they had to. Well, actually, Sweetwater has a credit check too. But
Yeah, I do think they do. Yeah,
But
yeah.
I know somebody that had a 550 credit score, and still got approved for a Les Paul Standard at American Musical.
Yeah, I mean,
So, dude, getting's good. Apparently,
yeah,
if
yeah,
you
yeah.
got bad credit, go knock yourself out. Go buy something you can't
Go buy a
afford.
bunch of guitars. Yeah, yeah,
or it was funny because this is one of those things when I get bored and I start looking at guitars like that because I'm always looking for something, and it's tough doing this. And this is I'm not throwing a pity party for myself, but as far as like the decision making process, do I invest in the cheaper guitar that I know I'm gonna lose at least a quarter of what I spend on it, and I'm not gonna really
yeah,
love it. I'm not gonna want to keep it. And do that to try and grow the YouTube because I know a lot of people are interested in those kinds of guitars.
yeah, yeah.
Or do I spend a little bit more? And then all of a sudden, that 12 payment plan looks appealing. I haven't done that yet, but it looks like something. It's just like maybe I could.
Yeah, yeah,
But
maybe.
but I'd have to love the guitar, and it would have to be something I would know I would want to keep. And again, Reverend not sold by AMS,
Yeah,
so
yeah, yeah.
not
I
happening.
will say that I do think like as a YouTube watcher, or an avid YouTube watcher, I
Yeah.
really hated it when the guys I started watching who were like reviewing stuff that was in the realm of possibilities for me to buy just started getting to the point where they were reviewing shit I would never buy. So like, I mean, I think as long as you're keeping a spread, it's fine. But like,
Yeah.
I was watching Fluff like way back in the day when he was doing like, he was just reviewing like 57s and shit, in i5s and doing like comparison videos. And now he's like, hey, check out my $5,000 Ernie Ball that I get because I'm sponsored by them. And I'm like, what?
Exactly.
Like,
Exactly.
I don't. Okay, I'm never gonna spend $5,500 on an Ernie Ball. So thanks for reviewing this for me. Like, and at the end of the day, if you're reviewing a $5,500 Ernie Ball and you don't say it's amazing, like,
What have you done?
what
Yeah,
am I
like,
even watching this video for? Like Rabia does the same thing where he'll be like, hey, here's my Paul's guitar custom PRS, and I'm like,
yeah.
yeah, do we need to watch to the end to know it's incredible? Of course it's incredible. Like,
I don't know if you've noticed this, but I haven't done this on purpose. I have not made a dedicated review of that ES Les Paul, and that's why.
yeah, yeah. I mean,
I don't
because
think
at a
it's an
certain
attainable
point,
guitar. I don't think it's an
right.
attainable guitar for 99% of the people. I really
And
don't.
I mean, you'd make a review if it sucked, right? Like if it
Yeah,
really
oh,
sucked,
I'd slam it.
You'd be like, "Hey, this is awful. No, don't go out and spend this kind of money on this guitar."
Yeah.
But like a review where you say really expensive guitar is amazing is just
What's
like,
it gonna do?
cool.
And
Yeah, yeah.
that's why whenever I get something like that, love that kind of monetary value, and I'm not planning on reselling it because most of the high end guitars I do buy like in that kind of price range with the ES Les Paul, I buy them to keep them. I don't buy them for YouTube. Like
Yeah.
I'll make a video just like kind of appreciating it and like going through like my kind of thought process with it, but it's not like a full on like, oh, here's this, I just spent this and this, and I don't know, I feel like you kind of toe that line like you were saying of you go from somebody that's totally relatable to somebody
Yeah.
that it's like it not that they're not relatable anymore, but I mean
No,
like
yeah,
that side
yeah.
of it's different. It just changes. That's all.
Right. And I'm
And
not saying Fluff isn't, because he's obviously catered his
no,
content more to the recording
e-
stuff, but, you
everybody
know,
has. Everybody
yeah, yeah,
caters to what they
yeah.
have to and what they do.
Sure,
And I'm
sure.
not knocking anybody's hustle on that aspect. I don't want to point anybody out, but I mean, I'll always be doing cheap. I like cheap guitars. I
Yeah,
don't know.
well,
I
and I
don't know
mean,
what it is about them. I like
as far
modding
as
cheap
I've seen
guitars.
too, yeah, and as far as I've seen too, honestly, it seems like people want to watch videos about cheap guitars. They want to know if it's worth it, if
Yeah.
it's something that they can use as a mod project, or if it's some diamond in the rough. Like, it makes for better content, unfortunately.
Yeah, you're right.
But I think as long as you're coming to grips with that and saying, like, I'm going to do some of the stuff that I feel like is worth it, along with the cheap stuff too. Like, whatever, you do
Yeah.
what you do. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just it's just other stuff that goes into the considerations. And luckily, I'm still operating in the black. I'm not in the red yet, so we're doing okay as far as
Nice.
you know. I'm not coming out of pocket for any of this stuff. It's
Sure.
just all just from the selling the guitars pays for everything. So I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not really profiting, but at the same time, it's like it helps everything, and it does get me to. Because I look at it like this: if I could get somebody to click on one of those videos, like the Harley Benton videos, right? And maybe they'll like my presentation enough where they'll watch me talk about some other random crap, because I cannot believe some of the views I get, like the numbers of the views I get on things where I'm like, this is such a stupid video when I'm filming it.
Yeah.
Like this is something that only I would watch because I'm dumb and I'm just talking about it because I feel like I don't know, I don't see anybody else talking about it, and like that'll do really
Sure.
well.
Yeah.
But if you don't do the video like the Harley Benton first, you're not going to hit as many people. So it's just
Yeah. Yeah.
it never ends, but I
No,
like
yeah.
it. I enjoy doing it.
Well, I mean, that's the whole thing, right? I mean, that's why we're here. We just like talking about this shit and talking to each other about it.
Yeah,
you know?
we've just
Yeah.
been shooting the shit. I didn't even notice. It's already been like almost an hour, and
Yeah,
it's just it just goes by really quick.
Yeah.
Speaking of the cheap guitars, with the Squires, I have to say, I'm really impressed with the pickups on that guitar.
Yeah.
The paranormal,
I've-
the Cabronita. I'm really impressed
Yeah.
with them.
Yeah. I've heard good things about the stuff they've been doing recently, which is good, because I do think that I always wonder, like, the kids that are getting Squires for Christmas, if, like, I don't know, if you start off with something that bad, like at what they were at a certain point, right, where they were like
Yeah.
almost unplayable, right? How many people are you discouraging from continuing to play the instrument by it sounding like shit, or it playing like shit, or it being harder to, kind of work through those initial parts of learning guitar, and like,
Yeah.
I'm glad that they're offering something that feels like, okay, I can grow on this thing and get better and become a musician, as opposed to it just being like a
toy.
yeah, my mom saw this for $99 at a BJ's or a Costco or something, and bought it for me. Like, I'm glad that they're, like, it used to be, the Star guitar or whatever was at kind of at the same level as a Squire, except that you had to go to Guitar Center to get a Squire instead. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I have played Walmart guitars that were better than some Epiphones.
Yeah. I've heard good things about their new stuff too, though. And I mean,
I'm sure you have.
yeah, but I don't know. I haven't played one in a while.
No, I say that unironically. I smiled.
Yeah.
You couldn't see me because we don't have the video
Yeah.
set up, but I was sarcastically smiling. But I have heard a few people that I really respect say the Inspired by Gibson line is actually pretty decent feeling.
Well, and I will say that I feel like they're trying more things than Gibson is.
Well, they obviously are. Yeah, and look
Yeah,
at even
I mean-
like the artist models guitars. I have to give
Yeah,
them credit
yeah.
on those. Some of
Yeah.
those are pretty cool. Like they have the semi-hollow. I think it's Emily Wolf. It's a Sheridan, but it has the Trini Lopez
Yeah,
F holes in
yeah.
it. It's kind of cool. Like it's something a little bit different. I mean,
Yeah.
I like it. I like the fact that
Yeah.
they're doing something that's not just a Les Paul. That's a traditional 60s.
Well, I feel like they are doing that too. Like, and that's what I don't get. Of course, we're just going to continue to keep coming back to this. I just don't get why Gibson isn't like, you can do both. Like, be the snotty Gibson that you want to be, and then also offer stuff that doesn't suck. Like, it just wouldn't be that hard. Like, Epiphone is literally doing it. They're going, yeah, you want to go buy a whatever Les Paul from Epiphone? Fine. You can find 100 of them. Like, but also, then we also have the Epiphone Modern line that's like amazing. I think they have fluences in them, and like
What?
don't quote me on this, but I want to
No,
say they're
I'm
putting
looking
stainless
that
steel
up.
frets in them.
I'm looking that up right now.
I'm
Hold on.
gonna yeah, we're gonna find it. Don't
I'm gonna find this right now, and I'm gonna link it on the screen because we're gonna do this in post anyways. So let's
yeah.
see. So Epiphone Modern. Let's see what we got here. All right, $699.
What is the name of the? There's a line that they just did.
Oh my god, that
And
thing is hideous. Blue, Google Blueberry Fade. Go to Sweetwater, and oh my god, that's the ugliest guitar I've ever seen. And I like ugly colors.
now's when I feel stupid. I have the mechanical keyboard, and it's gonna be so loud.
No, Pro Bucker 2 humbuckers. So
No, no,
garbage.
no. I swear to God that they have this new line. It's like a metal focused line, and they have Fishmans in them. I think.
All right. I'm going to look one more second real quick. We're going to go to the newest arrivals because that would tell me what we have here. Oh, you're going to laugh. The newest models are the new Epiphone / Les Paul standards for $900.
It's the prophecy collection. That's what it is. I'm not making it up.
$900.
They are, but let me see. They do have Fishmans in them.
$900.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot for an Epiphone. They're pretty cool though. They're cool.
They're trying something. I'll give them that.
Yeah, yeah. I thought I remember reading that they were.
Why don't they bring back the Gibson Goddess and offer that as a Les Paul studio price?
Dude, I
Why
would
don't
buy
they
one
do
of
that?
those immediately.
And you know how many people would buy those? A really lightweight Les Paul that looks really
Yeah.
cool. You know? Yeah, it's not
Like
hard.
I said, I think I said on the last one, LTD has perfected the Les Paul in every way except that pointy horn. And basically, if Gibson just releases a Les Paul that's exactly an LTD or an ESP with a normal body shape, like they'd kill it.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, man. This has been about 50% of us just saying how disappointed we are with Gibson.
Yeah, yeah. All right, we're gonna have to make sure we make a rule for the next one not to talk about Gibson.
I think it's impossible.
Yeah.
But let me think here. I there's something I almost want to bring up because I think it's so funny, and it's another person that's just so out of context of the world. They're just in their own little world, and I've never liked this person anyways. He's a famous guitar player. Well, I've already said this much. I might as well do it. I was watching KDH, and he had a video because he buys dumb stuff like as like a prank. Like he bought like a Fender Fedora because he was just like, what are these people even like focusing on when their guitars aren't even, up to scratch, whatever. So he just posted a video about Joe Bonamassa's personal merch store. Dude, I have never, I can't say what I want to say because YouTube will get so pissed off at me. But I have never seen someone think so highly of himself in my entire life as Joe Bonamassa.
Yeah, I'm not a fan. I'm with you there. I feel like I don't know. He's like
he's a poor man's Gary Moore.
That's
all he is. That's all he is.
He's like dad rock for dads who somehow got through their blues phase. Like I don't know, man. He's like one of those guys. Not anywhere to the like same extent, but I kind of feel that way about like Vi and Satriani. Like I think we just missed. We're not old enough for that wave.
No,
of guitar
I don't
players.
think so. I don't think they're like them because they're not douchebags. Like Joe Bonamassa is just an unlikable douchebag, and I mean this is that. Although I can't unsay that. That's going on this thing, but I think I've said before in a video how much I dislike him, and I mainly dislike him because I kind of alluded to it that if Gary Moore was never born, Joe Bonamassa would not exist. He stole the entire thing. Like he literally stole Gary Moore, like from Gary Moore, and he just it's in every way. The Les Paul into the Marshall, and just the way that he played the blues was the way Gary Moore played the blues. Like and then Gary Moore dies, and all of a sudden, I think if Gary Moore was more famous in America, then a lot more people would realize it and be like, yeah, I'm just watching some guy cosplay as Gary Moore in a
Yeah.
cheap
Yeah.
suit with a guitar that nobody should be able to afford.
No. Yeah. And I gotta be honest with you. Like, I'm gonna sound like such a snob saying this, but the idea that like any of these instrumental guys are like commanding the presence that they command, it's like the only people who listen to you are guitar players who think you're incredible. It's like it's like being in a cult. Like you've surrounded yourself with people who are constantly telling you how amazing you are, and then everybody outside of that group's like, Joe, who the fuck are you? I don't listen to instrumental music. Like, what? Of course,
Sounds
I don't
like
know.
I'm waiting at the dentist. Like, what's
Yeah,
happening right
yeah,
now?
yeah. It's like, oh, maybe your song came out in the elevator I was in one time. I'm not sure.
Yeah. Oh
Yeah.
man, we're making a lot of friends today.
I love instrumental music. I don't love his instrumental music.
No,
But
I
I
do
feel like
too.
having that kind of head about being a guitar player who's playing solo albums is just kind of crazy.
Yeah.
And,
Well, I
and
don't
I
even
will
care
say,
about that. Yeah, he's just a dick
yeah,
to his fans. He's a dick
he
to the
is. Yeah,
fans. He's a real
yeah.
just snotty, just narcissistic dude. I don't know. He just really rubs me the wrong way.
Yep, yep. Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
We're gonna get crucified in the comments over that. But you know what?
It's
I
all right.
don't care.
It's
Yeah,
all
but
right.
I don't care. That's the thing. I guess I would have just not brought him up, but it's hard not to. But he sells lawn gnomes, collectible coins. I swear to God, dude, it is hilarious.
Yeah, I don't know. And you're just ripping it from Kiss, and like nobody liked it when they did it either.
He's
So
worse than Gene Simmons. I'm gonna send you this link. You can look at it after this, and I'll let you reference it back after you've done your little homework. We won't stick on this anymore. But I want you next week when we do this. I want your thoughts on some of the stuff that he sells and some of the prices of some of the stuff he sells.
okay, all right, all right.
You're gonna have a laugh.
Oh, I'm sure I will. I'm sure I will. Every time I've seen one of his signature guitars, I have a laugh. So if he's selling lawn gnomes, I'm sure it's going to be awesome.
Yeah, yeah. It's yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But the way you feel about Gibson not give just stop giving Slash guitars. That's how I feel about Epiphone with Joe Bonamassa.
Yes.
It's just like
Yeah.
stop,
Yeah.
just stop, just stop giving the guy
Well,
guitars.
and I mean, arguably worse because at least Slash is a household name.
Yeah,
you
at least
know?
Slash was in a band that people liked.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
What, 30, 40
for
years
sure.
ago?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Oh, they.
yeah. Yep.
Negative Nancy's us. We're just old men, just angry at other old men who are angry old men. The
Yep,
circle
yep.
of life. So
Yep.
let's talk about something positive before we start
Wrap it
this.
up.
We start wrapping it up. What is the
Yep.
best import guitar you've ever played?
Best import guitar I've ever played.
Yeah, I was having this conversation with somebody earlier. That's the only reason I bring it up. I know it's out of nowhere, but I wanted to. It's in my notes of something I wanted to ask you.
Yeah, yeah. There's been a couple of Ibanez's I've played that I know you're not a big Ibanez guy, but I will say some of those
Prestige.
some of those Prestige guitars just for what they're doing play like nothing else,
Yeah.
And I'm not a shredder in any way, right? For all intents, I'm barely a guitar player.
Same.
But it's just
Same.
like I don't know. You touch those things and like things just come out of you that you didn't even know existed. Like they're just so easy, and in some ways that turns people off to them because they're going for the hyper shredder guys and they're like optimizing for that. But I think I don't know, man. They're the quality on them, and I will say that even back in the day when they were doing like the real cheap shit, when everybody else's cheap shit was awful, Ibanez's was always reliable. Like you could pick up a shitty Ibanez and it was like it at least had the bones of something decent. Back when like you were picking up like a Squire that could barely stay in tune. So
Yeah.
I will give them a lot of credit for that. I think. While I think they are hyper focused on a very specific market and they do that market really well, some of their guitars, some of the Prestige models are just incredible.
Yeah, the J Customs, man. It's another one of those things. I want to buy one because I love the craftsmanship and I know how good it is. And I know what you're saying about the guitar plays itself.
Yeah,
It's a very
yeah,
weird experience.
it is.
It's hard to explain to somebody because it feels like nothingness almost. It's just there's no fight. Everything is exactly perfect. It's almost
Yep,
too
yep,
perfect. I just
yep.
I the only reason, and I can even get past the looks, honestly. The looks, I like the look of some of them, but I just wish the neck wasn't so damn thin.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a mood. It's a mood thing. Yeah, I think there are times where I'm like riffing away, and I'm like, man, this baseball bat of a neck feels amazing, and then
Yeah.
sometimes I'm like, I don't really want to work that hard, you know?
Yeah, and that's the
And
funny thing about
yeah,
the Orville that I have and the Edwards I have. They're both Les Paul customs, but the way that I want to play when I play each of them back to back, because I was like,
yeah,
I'm filming a video where I'm going to compare them, and when I'm playing them, they're so different in what actually comes out of my hands when I'm playing. Like
sure,
the
yeah,
Orville, I want to like really just like riff and just kind of be like a rhythm guy. But when I play the Edwards, all of a sudden I just have confidence that I don't get from
right,
those kind of
yep,
vintage style guitars, and I
yep.
want to try things, and I'm playing legato and I'm working on all this stuff higher up the fretboard that I don't normally do, just because it's just that damn good and it's just that easy to play. But
Yeah, I think like when I hear people say that about Ibanez, it's like I completely get it, right? But I will say they got a lot of guys on their roster that play guitar better than anybody else in the world, and they're into that for a reason, like
Martin Miller is one of
yeah,
the best guitarists in the whole world. I love Martin Miller, man. His guitar's sick.
yep, yep, yeah. They got I think they got one of the Polyphia guys. I
Yes,
think one
one of them.
one of I think one of them's on Charvel and the other one's on Ibanez. I think they got both the guys from Chan too. I mean, and those guys they rip, right? And I mean, if they're not out there playing baseball neck guitars, it's because they don't want to, right?
No, it's not for
And
everybody.
yeah, it's not for everybody. But yeah, sometimes you think like, oh yeah, the modern guitars are doing new modern things because
It
like
works.
you need it. It works. Yeah,
It
yeah,
works. Like when I'm doing a stretch from like the 12th fret, like there's this one phrase, I'm working on an ex Japan song, and there's one phrase where, with your pointer finger, you're on the 12th fret, and then you're reaching up with your pinky, I think to the 19th fret. I think it's a 7 fret swing.
yeah,
And
yeah.
so you're like kind of going in between the notes there, but you're landing on the 19, but you have to hold the 12 basically. When I
Sure.
play on the Edwards, I'm like, this is butter. I can do this, and it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
But because the neck
Yep.
is so little at that point, but when I try the same thing on the Orville, the way my thumb sits on the back of it, like it actually, it's not comfortable whatsoever, and I
Right.
struggle to try and play that phrase with it, and it's weird because I've had this thing with my wife, and one way I've been able to justify having a bunch of these guitars is because it's like, oh well, they're all different, and because she's a musician too, like she gets it. Like a Telecaster sounds like a Telecaster. Like the PRS never, the McCarty's never going to sound like a Telecaster, and just like the Telecaster
Right.
is not going to sound exactly like a PRS, but I mean it can get closer. But
Yeah.
what so I've always been like, I'll have one of each kind of guitar, but I feel like the modern Les Paul, whether it's an ESP, an Edwards, a Tokai, or anything like that, versus the kind of old school, like the Gibson style, in this case the Orville by Gibson, I feel like I could justify having both of those because they are
Yeah.
that
They are
different.
different.
They're
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
different.
Yeah.
So it's just
Absolutely.
very interesting. But in the case of Telecasters, I can't do it. Like it's just like I need one telly. I have my blue telly. It's
Yeah.
just like I
Yeah.
don't need another telly. Like that's it. But in the case of Les
Yeah.
Paul, yeah, I love both.
Yeah. And I mean, if you find the holy grail of a telly that plays just the way you want it to, you really don't. It could arguably be your only guitar, I think. But
Oh yeah, of
yeah,
course.
I don't think you need multiples. Yeah. Yeah. Agreed. Yeah.
No,
What
I
about
think
you for the for favorite import?
uh obviously it's from Japan.
Yeah. Of course.
The ESP Core Series Horizon 3.
Yeah. That was kind of my other go-to was like, is it an ESP or is it an Ibanez? And
Yeah.
I think I just haven't had enough experience with enough ESPs.
Yeah.
I played a bunch of LTDs and they always blow my socks off for the money they're asking. But yeah, I think 2 or 3 times I've had an actual ESP in my hands. I'm like, I didn't think it could get that much better.
Oh, it
And it
can.
is that much
It can.
better. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the only other guitars that actually would arguably be better are the Navigators. The
Yeah.
Navigators absolutely put Gibson Historic to shame.
Sure.
It's
Yeah.
it's genuinely funny how much
Yep.
better they do it than Gibson, but those are so hard to find. And the problem with them is when I buy one of those, if I buy a guitar from that price from Japan, first of all, obviously the shipping is expensive as is for a normal guitar. Like when I mostly get Fender Japan stuff. The shipping on that's like 260 now,
Yeah.
and that's for a guitar that's a little bit over $1,000. When we're
Sure.
talking about a Navigator, and to have that insured properly,
Yeah.
dude,
Yeah. Yeah.
forget it,
Yep. Yep.
forget it. I mean, I'm adding $600
Yeah.
to the price.
Might as well just fly out there and get it yourself.
You're not kidding. If I could,
Yeah.
I would. They won't let me in.
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
And I'm not kidding with that either. I tried.
No, I know. Yeah. 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 I remember you telling me about that. Yep.
Yeah, we tried recently again too. We were like, "Could we come yet?" And they're like, "No." We're like, "Shit." It's
Yeah.
like, come on, man. Like that'd be great for my YouTube channel. That's not gonna work though when you're applying to get in there. You have to have a visa or be a Japanese resident to get back in the country.
I mean, you could put the link to the YouTube channel. Maybe they haven't seen it. Maybe that's why.
I think if they see how much I unabashedly just praise everything from Japan,
Yeah, they'll probably let you in. Yeah.
they probably be like, "Oh, good guy Gene, he could come in here. Yeah, good boy."
Sure.
Nah,
Yeah.
yeah, like no.
It's worth a shot, man. It's
No
worth a
chance
shot.
in hell. Yeah, they'll tell me to piss off before I even fill out the application.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, the Japanese, I've not found another country that builds guitars better than them. If we're talking strictly imports, because
Sure. Yep.
especially the modern stuff, because American modern stuff. I mean, maybe you have your Sir, but I think I still go with the ESP over it. That's just me.
I mean, I feel like I get an ESP for a reasonable price that
Well,
could compete for sure. Yeah.
take price
Yeah.
out of it. I still think I take the ESP.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
the
think you're
only,
probably right.
yeah, I think only the PRS would be. I think that's the ultimate test. And when I get really big and I'm this huge YouTuber and I'm making the videos that you're complaining about, I'm gonna do one where it's the core ESP versus the core Custom 24, and we're gonna have our death match of those two from there.
Sure.
But nah, I mean that's light years away. My wife would shoot me in the face if I spent $10,000 on two guitars. She'd shoot me in the freaking head. So that's not happening
Yeah.
anytime soon. But
Yeah.
I would love to.
I think it's a fair reaction as a guitar player. I think 20 grand on guitars is.
It's
I
only
probably
10.
have.
It's only 10.
Okay. All right. Well, I definitely have a lot more than that, but dumped into this room that I'm sitting in and talking to you out of right now. But
Yeah, I know.
Still, there's something about. It's just it's a reasonable reaction.
Yeah, I haven't been killed yet, and I have all the stuff behind me, so I'm not gonna push my luck much further than that. We're both married.
Yep.
We both understand. We both have daughters, so it's
Yep.
not like we're younger anymore. But we didn't have money when we were younger, so we were. Yeah, different time.
Yep.
Different
Yep.
time.
Yep. Absolutely.
But I think that's a good place for us to kind of call this. Anything you want to say before we get off for today?
No, man. Looking forward to doing these more often.
Fantastic. All right. Thanks to everybody who has tuned into episode dose of. I don't know. What the hell? We got to think of a name here. I don't want to call it the Audiomo podcast. That's really lame. So if you've made it this far, leave a name for this podcast in the description. And you know what? I will steal it from you the way that John Lennon stole songs from Frank Zappa. But we're going to get to that in one of the videos this week.
All right. You're just going to drop a mic and leave, huh?
I got a full video on it, baby. It's all about Frank Zappa. That guy's a god. But on that note, I will see you all tomorrow. Take care, everybody.